All right, let's just jump right into this explainer. Today, we're holding up a psychological mirror. Because look, if you think being broke is just a math issue, a simple lack of dollars and cents, you're in for a pretty wild awakening. Here's a crazy stat to kick us off. Studies consistently show a massive percentage of people pulling in six-figure salaries are still living paycheck to paycheck. Like, how is that mathematically possible? Well, it's because financial depletion is rarely just about the numbers. We're going to break down the 5 completely different types of being broke, their hidden causes, and those invisible mental traps that just keep us stuck.
So what does being broke actually mean? We usually think of it as this singular state, right? Just a giant flashing zero in your bank account. We treat it like a temporary cash flow error. But the reality? It is way more complex and deeply rooted in our behaviors. There are actually 5 distinct types of being broke. And honestly, the scariest part, and why we absolutely need to unpack this, is that most people fall right into type 3 and literally have no idea it's happening until they're drowning in credit card statements. They think they're doing totally fine, but they're just slowly bleeding out financially. This brings us to a huge, crucial point. Having a massive income does not automatically equal wealth. We've got to violently separate those two ideas in our heads right now. I mean, you could be this highly specialized neurosurgeon or a tech exec making $500,000 a year, but if your psychological spending outpaces that paycheck every single month, your actual wealth is zero. Your paycheck might be huge, but your bank account is basically a broken piggy bank. Wealth isn't what you earn, it's what you keep. And for so many high earners, being broke is emotional, it's psychological, and sometimes it kind of becomes their entire hidden identity. To figure out where your money is actually vanishing, we need to contrast a temporary circumstance against a deeply rooted behavioral trap. There is a massive, fundamental difference between simply having a money problem and having a mindset problem. A money problem is situational. It's just an empty pocket. But a mindset problem, that's systemic. That's a chained mind. Think about it. If you hand $1 million to someone with a money problem, boom, their problem is solved. But give that same $1 million to someone with a mindset problem, they're going to be broke again in 5 years. That distinction is literally the key to diagnosing your own financial health.
Okay, let's dive into type 1, temporarily broke. Now, this person has a money problem right now, not a mindset problem. Picture a medical student drowning in 6-figure loans, or a brilliant creator trying to bootstrap their very first business out of a tiny apartment. Life has handed them a financial storm, and yeah, they're firmly at the bottom of the mountain. But the defining trait here? Resilience. Mentally, they still have that upward, optimistic energy. They are actively making sacrifices because they know, for sure, that this is just a challenging chapter, not the whole book. They have a clear plan to build wealth the second that income starts flowing. Now, contrast that optimism with type 2, lifestyle broke. And wow, this is the silent killer for decent earners. This is the person making good, sometimes great money, but by the 30th of the month, the vault is totally empty and they're sweating until the next direct deposit hits. It is literally death by 1,000 microtransactions. We're talking about the 7 different streaming apps you forgot to cancel, the $40 food deliveries because, let's be real, cooking feels utterly impossible after a long workday, or those daily gourmet coffees you don't even really enjoy anymore. It's this slow, comfortable financial bleed that sneaks up on you and just morphs into an unbreakable lifestyle. And that brings us to the exact dimension where the vast majority of modern consumers are unknowingly stuck. This is type 3, dopamine broke. This isn't about spending for physical survival or even convenience. Listen to this. This person spends because they desperately need to feel something. It's emotional regulation masked as consumerism. Are you sad? You buy a new outfit to lift your spirits. Bored on a random Tuesday night, you open an app and order some gadget you'll probably use exactly once. Lonely? You casually add an item to your online cart just to get that anticipation of a package arriving. You are buying an emotion, not a product. This creates a really vicious, invisible loop. Here's how it goes. Step 1, you feel isolated, stressed, or just plain bored. Step 2, you buy something. Step 3, your brain gets flooded with this quick hit of dopamine, a brief, shiny little moment of happiness. But then, step 4, the product arrives, the fleeting novelty totally fades, and that inner emptiness just rushes right back in, which inevitably leads to step 5, you buy again. You might convince yourself you're just treating yourself for working so hard, but actually, modern algorithms know this behavioral loop way better than we do. They literally weaponize our boredom, engineering these friction-free, one-click checkouts to sell us temporary hits of dopamine over and over again. Then we have the grand illusion, type 4, status broke. On the outside, this life looks absolutely spectacular, like the peak of success. We're talking the newest luxury phones upgraded every single year, designer labels practically screaming for attention, VIP tables on the weekend.
But if you look behind the velvet rope, the reality is completely different. Behind that shiny facade is absolutely zero wealth building, none. There are no investments, no emergency funds, no actual assets. It's just a completely empty vault, beautifully disguised as a diamond. These individuals are heavily, heavily chained to a designer culture. They take on these suffocating monthly car payments at like 9% interest, and they max out multiple credit cards to their absolute limits. And the tragic irony here? They aren't buying this stuff to build actual generational wealth or even because they deeply value the items. They're buying it strictly to avoid looking poor to strangers on the internet. They're quite literally funding their own long-term financial ruin just to maintain a curated aesthetic for an audience of people they don't even know. Finally, we drop into the heavy reality of Type 5 hopeless broke. And this is arguably the most dangerous and heartbreaking dimension of them all. This person has endured so much chronic financial stress for so long that they've actually just stopped believing improvement is even possible. They've totally surrendered to the math. There are no long-term financial goals here, no budget spreadsheets, no dreams of investing or retiring early. It is pure, exhausting survival mode, lived day in and day out under this heavy, deeply pessimistic cloud. The fight is just gone, and the mindset has entirely collapsed under the weight of the circumstance. At the end of the day, people stay broke because they never realize which type they've actually become. They misdiagnose the disease. Being broke is basically a chameleon. It takes on so many different forms. It can be a temporary life phase built on future optimism, an emotional band-aid for modern loneliness, or a deep psychological cage built on societal status. And you can never effectively patch the leak in your wallet until you shine a really bright, honest light on the exact mindset causing it. Fixing a dopamine problem requires completely different tools than fixing a status problem. You literally have to know your enemy. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to be brutally honest with yourself right now. Think about your own habits, your triggers, those late-night purchases. Which of these 5 traps is silently draining your potential? Acknowledging the trap is the very first step to dismantling it. Ask yourself, are you truly building wealth, or are you just buying a temporary feeling? Keep analyzing your behaviors, keep learning, and whatever you do, don't let your lifestyle become your financial prison. So which type do you think is the most dangerous? And more importantly, which one are you?